This evening we have a conversation between Harvey Sachs and Gianandrea Noseda. Gianandrea Noseda is one of the most outstanding Italian conductor in these years, and now is here in New York to conduct Romeo and Juliet by Gounod at the Metropolitan Opera. And this is the reason why we decided to invite him and to have a conversation about his work, obviously, but in particular his work with French composers, because last year he was here for Le Pêcheur de Perles by Bizet, and this year this opera by Gounod. It's very interesting to understand how a conductor work, why he choose an opera or another, how is his work with the singers, for example. He also is very curious about which kind of work it's necessary to have the results of the opera on the stage. Last year we have a series of conversation with the Italian conductors who are here in New York to work at the Metropolitan Opera, or not only Metropolitan Opera, because the next one will be Rinaldo Alessandrini, and who is going to be here in New York for the festival by Carnegie Hall, La Serenissima, dedicated to the music in Venice, and then we will have here Marco Armiliato and then Nicola Luisotti, and I hope to close this series with Maurizio Pollini. He's not a conductor, but he's so famous and fantastic pianist, and so I hope to convince him, because it's shy people, but to be here with us and speak about his fantastic career, and I think it's very important to show here in New York how many Italian musicians work here and with important role, and so I think it's very important and very interesting series to come to the Institute and to listen to these musicians.
First of all, good evening. In any opera, not only in the French opera, when you do any production in any theater, all these elements, so have you seen some choreographic moment during the Walpurgisnacht? So all the elements have to be rehearsed separately. So at the beginning you do music rehearsal with the singers at the piano, so soloist, conductor and pianist. There is where I think the opera, the building up of the opera should start, from the relationship between singers and conductor. After that you start rehearsing only the orchestra, so without anybody else, just conductor and orchestra. In the meanwhile, the director is rehearsing with the company, with the soloist. One rehearsal is, I have a chorus meister. Any theater, any opera house has his own chorus meister, which is a huge cooperator, for a huge help for a conductor. So he rehearsed the chorus, but in one of the rehearsals I go there, I will just rehearse the chorus. And after that, little by little, you put all the puzzle together. Just you put together singers and orchestra and the director. And this is one of the first rehearsal called the stage orchestra, where everybody is there. That's why I call the opera a miracle when it works, because it's made of so many elements, and to have the control of everything is fascinating from one side. It's tough, difficult from another side, but when happens, when you have the feeling in one particular performance, everything goes well. And you realize that because it seems easy what you are doing. You don't have to force, it's just coming along very naturally. But it's very rare. And when it happens, it's really like to touch the sky with your fingers, as we say in Italy, because it's really a miracle. Because, you have the singers, if one singer is not feeling well, or the orchestra one night is a little bit less concentrated for no reasons. You cannot predict. So when you go to the opera house, there is no reason for not repeating what we are doing all the process. But that is actually what is happening. You have to be on yourself, because if the conductor is not on, there the problems start to come. You have always to motivate, because especially here at the Metropolitan Opera, they change production every night. The performance, so the orchestra sees every night a different conductor, different singers, different. So it could become a sort of high level routine.
What is it that distinguishes French opera from Italian opera, German opera? In a way, nothing in particular. On the one hand, I mean, they are all developing the European musical language at the same time. But on the other hand, there is something special about French opera. There's something special about the diction, about the sound, the way the voice is used in French opera.
What is particularly fascinating from my point of view, being an Italian, is the fact the French opera is a little bit, said by that sounds a little bit negative, less precise. I try to explain what I mean. You need to, in the French opera, you need to create the environment. You have to create the field where everything is possible, where everything can take its own position. In Italian opera, especially Verdi, but also Puccini, is very much angular. You can feel immediately the change of the atmosphere. With one note, Verdi changes the atmosphere from the most beautiful and tender calmness to the most violent aggressivity in less than 1 second. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen in a French opera. It takes more time. I don't say there are not dramatic moments or just beautiful, ecstatic moments, but the way to go, one lead to the next one, is more organic, is more natural, is more like the French language, no? So there are also moments where even the French composers try to look a little bit more Italian. That I am supposed to say in this place,
In the old days, 100 years ago, opera companies in Europe, and to some extent even here, they operated on the impresario system. So the impresario invested in productions which were much simpler than they are today. You didn't have built-out staging. You had painted backdrops, and you could use the same castle painting for one opera that you used in another opera that had a castle in it. Everything was much easier from the visual point of view. If the opera was a flop, it would close after a single performance or two performances, and then they would be ready, in a couple of days with the next production. You can't do that now. You have to schedule everything.
Now, I did a new production of La Bohème in October to open this season, 16-17. We did 9 productions. All the performances were sold out. But to recreate interest, we had to do a new production. Very modern, very contemporary, incredibly well received, very provocative. But if you don't do either one thing or the other, why people will go to the opera? You cannot recreate the same elements of 100 years ago. And we will be out of time.
Yeah, and the other thing that you mentioned, about the audiences wanting new operas, especially at the main opera houses.
Yeah.
They didn't want to hear, in 1900, they didn't want to hear Il Trovatore, they didn't want to hear Rigoletto. Those were 50 years old. They wanted new works.
If you have a CD, now a CD are not going to, new songs from a pop star, after 2 months is old. You want something new. That probably was the same thing with the opera 150 years ago.
Do you have more French operas in your future that you have planned already, or is this...
As far as I remember, I would like sooner rather than later to do Werther. The basic problem is just to find the time to learn it, because I remember when Valery Gergiev, I was still a younger conductor, he told me, take advantage of the time you have now, because when you will, if your activity as a conductor will develop, the time will shrink. You will have always less time to learn. But you have to learn better, because people is expecting a certain quality. This fall I will do my first Tristan, and I have to start in Turin. I will open the season, with Tristan und Isolde, and I have to find the time to learn it already starting in April, May. And now I have to do my first Manon Lescaut, so I have to learn Manon Lescaut immediately after my first Fiery Angel Prokofiev.
Wow.
So it's, but never say no or never.
Right, never say never, yes. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.